Welcome back to the HLG podcast. We've got a special episode for you today. Me and the CEO, Steve Johnson, are actually going to talk about light-emitting diodes and grow lights. It's been a popular request in the comments section, guys. It was super important for us to have Samsung on. That was like, we're the only people, first and only people to have Samsung on. Last episode we did the supporting our local lobbyists with the Tennessee Growers Coalition, and there's been so many requests for people to just talk about it. The HLG lights. So that's what we're here to do. And welcome, Steve. Excited to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have had a lot of people say, great podcast as usual. When are you actually going to do a podcast about the lights? It's like, oh, I didn't really want to make a commercial, but if I have to,
I know,
here
right?
we are, right?
We were talking about that this morning. It's like when I first started making videos, like I didn't have any sponsors. And when I clicked on that AdSense and people had to watch an ad to watch the video, I got so many comments like, you sell out, all this stuff, right? Now the internet's changed, the monetization's changed. Like when you're not selling something, people think that you have an ulterior motive.
Yeah, what's your angle?
Yeah, so this episode is sponsored by Horticulture Lighting Group. We'd like to sell you some grow lights, and here's why, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think the episode's important because over the last, I would say, 4 or 5 months, I mean, you dropped a lot of lights. A lot of new lights. The lights are different shapes. The spectrum's different on many cases. There's reflectors on some and not others. So let's just jump into that, clear some of that stuff up. So a lot of people are asking, I'm seeing a question, is there a reflector that I can retrofit or bolt onto my older HLG lights?
Unfortunately, right now there isn't. Right. But I am looking into some way that we can do that, maybe for a select couple of lights.
Yeah, because we didn't Swiss cheese up the old lights with a bunch of extra holes, right? So it's not like there's tapped holes on the perimeter that we can get into. So it's a challenge. I mean, when you make a grow light, you want the least amount of penetrations possible, and they're all filled by a rivet or a wire or something. So good luck with that.
Yeah. So that's one thing we were looking at. Is if we do that, it'll be maybe 1 to 2 models, and that's it. And hopefully it'll cover 50% of the overall lights that we shipped out, in the last couple years. But again, that's something that, we're just starting to explore. So there's no promise that that's going to come or anything else. It's just we're thinking about it. And if it's too cost prohibitive, we probably won't do it. So it's just one of those things that we're just starting into it. We've got so many new lights and things that have come out, are coming out, that, our R&D efforts have been concentrated on meeting demands in parts of the market that we weren't in before.
Right.
So that's what we had to do first, is actually kind of fill the gaps in our product line, and then maybe we can look at, hey, we'll kind of give you guys this.
Okay. So don't hold your breath on the reflectors for old models, but the new models do perform fundamentally better. I mean, more light that you're paying for gets to the canopy, right? And the reason why the reflectors aren't available because it's one piece of metal that you designed that folds down, so it's all one piece. So it's not like the reflectors are a bolt-on thing. So, another question I've been seeing a lot is what lights have the reflector built in?
Okay, so currently, as of the airing of this episode, almost all of them. So the only light that won't, so we've got a 250 Veg Pro, the new 320 that just came out, FR, 350R will have reflectors. Of course, all your 700, 750, which replace the 600 and 650, have reflectors. Scorpion has reflectors. The new greenhouse light that we're just now in launch phase has reflectors as well. So basically everything except for the really small lamps like HLG 65, 100, and HLG 200. Okay. And those are basically that it could be possible in a way, but because of the way they're made, that they're just basically a larger PCB that serves as its own heat sink. You can't run that through an SMT for obvious reasons. So.
Sure. And the way I see people deploying those, a lot of times people have arrays of them or they're cable tied to a rack, or it's like for a house plan, or if it's for a mother plan or something. So I don't think it's really worth the trouble. And on the lower end, like how much more expensive do you want the light?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. The light's at a perfect price.
Yeah,
point.
like $65, $99. I mean, what, you know.
Yeah, ready to plug in the wall with hangers.
Yeah, you want to pay $140 to get, you know, arguably a little more light to the canopy, 10% of 65 watts, okay, well, you could spend that $50 and go with 100 and get a lot more light, so
100 is a lot of light.
It is.
When you pull it, like I'm so used to looking at like 600 watt lights and stuff. I got my mom a HLG 100 for Christmas for the sole purpose of, getting seeds started and stuff, or like when it freezes rarely where she's at, bringing the plants indoors. So like during Christmas, I went home, she had it in her dining room, like formal dining room. Lights up the whole freaking thing. You can see it from the street with 100 watts. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It is. So what are we talking reflector wise? So like most models then have gone up in wattage by anywhere from 50 to 70 watts. Hence the naming convention that we use is basically like if it's a 600 watt driver, we call it HLG 600, right? So now we're using 680 watt drivers, calling it the 680. Well, or the 700 because it actually puts out 700.
So the 700 HLG 700 is about 600. So it got about a 50 or 60 watt bump over the old 600, which was like 590 to 600 actual watts. This one's about 670.
Okay.
So we're just to argue semantics, because we already had a 650, we kind of had to go 700 just to differentiate. Okay. And then the 750 is about 725 watts now, where the old that replaces the old 650 that was about 650 watts.
Okay.
So now, so again, it kind of got that bump up to the next level. So yeah, so the really good part is with those two models, they're the same retail price as the old ones. Okay. And you're getting that extra wattage and extra power.
Yeah,
and
10% nominal, 10, 11, 12.5%.
Yeah,
more
extra
power. Okay.
Which translates into photons. But then on top of that, you actually got a 12 to 15% increase in photons to the canopy with the reflector design. Yeah. So you're getting quite a bit more light to the canopy versus the old style.
Yeah. And I can attest to that. I mean, I don't have the brand new Apogee meter, but I think I have the SQ502. And the newest one's the 503. Has a little bigger sensor. I think it accounts for more far red in that bigger sensor. Probably. But on my old sensor, so you and Amit sent me 8 of the new Diablo X, right? Mm-hmm. And then I have 80 Scorpion Diablos. So I put 2 rows of it in, to do the side-by-side. And I'm like, I'm trying to think at max, I was seeing about 18 to 20% more PPFD between the watts and the reflectors at the canopy, right? Mm-hmm. And that's in a room. I mean, you've seen my rooms. Maybe some of the internet has it because I haven't really posted much on it, but 24 by 24 room with 20 lights. So, I mean, it's max full of lights. You would think that reflectors wouldn't have that much value because if your lights are damn near touching the wall, the wall's the reflector, right? But it's just the opposite. So really the design, I got to commend you, is effective whether you have 1 light or 100 lights. It still does what we're claiming it does.
Yeah,
right?
so what it did was it didn't really ruin the overlap feature, and there's not really a drop-off suddenly like you would have with secondary optics.
Yeah.
And we actually sized the reflectors in length and angle to only correct the light for the most part that otherwise probably didn't make it to the canopy to begin with. Right. So in essence, if you put it in a sphere, it'll test a little lower because you're bouncing the light now versus a sphere is, so that, the material that we build it out of is probably 93, 94% reflective. So you're going to lose a little bit of that off that bounce. Well, a sphere is like almost 100% reflective. It's like 99.98 or something really, and they're calibrating for that. So it's going to sphere test a slight bit lower. Yeah. Say you take the same exact everything, and everything is exactly the same photon to photon. You'll get a little lower number in a sphere, but you're going to get a quite a bit higher number at the canopy. So I liken it to like you've seen, like if you're a motorhead like I am, you've seen these. What is it? The Toyota Supras. Well, they'll put this insane amount of boost on it, and its torque curve is like none, and there's this huge spike. Right. Like, it's 1,500 horsepower, bro. Yeah. And then it runs a 10-second quarter mile. It's like, yeah, but I can do that with 500 horsepower. What why. And then you figure out that you can make that peak power, but it's getting that power to the ground and then effectively, gear ratios, everything has to be right. So you can make the power, and then there's the application of the power. So
no, that's a good analogy. I see your point there. Like another example in the car realm would be like all-wheel drive sports cars, right? You got a flywheel horsepower, which is cool. That's like, for you to brag about, but that's about all it does. And then you add that front differential to make it all-wheel drive, and there's a horsepower loss, but it's going to connect way better. You see the 4S Porsches get off the line, and they're like, McLaren might catch up, but it's off the line faster. So that makes sense. Spheres are funny, man, because it is the measurement tool that we all use. It's like when you go on and like Migro, he's got his own. It's not a sphere, but it's his own control testing environment. So it's apples to apples to apples to apples. But
his is more real world.
His is kind of more, it's more real world. Like, okay, cool. This light maybe puts out more photons just in the universe, right? But you're not growing plants around the light. You're growing plants under the light. So
absolutely.
There's a lot to be said. I think the way Shane does it over there is pretty realistic. I mean, it is like the numbers aren't as like when people read his numbers, they're always lower than the sphere numbers.
Right. There's going to be 15, a loss, 20%.
Right? Of course.
Because you're bouncing off of reflective walls, and things like that. So,
but that's what you're going to experience as a grower, is what he's doing. So, man, I really missed the boat on that. I could have been him, but I quit YouTube.
You did. You could have absolutely.
I could have reviewed all the lights.
And I can't speak for 100% sure, but I believe he will be joining us, remotely on a future episode.
Or we could fly over there.
No,
I couldn't have done his job because I went to go work for Chilled. So how am I gonna do? Well, no, he does a great job. He owns his own company, Migro, sells his own lights, but somehow in a very trustworthy manner managed to review competitor lights and stuff. His lights are still available, but he'll tell you that this is good or that's good or whatever. So.
And the thing I like about it is his light isn't number one in his own testing. So
if it was always number one, you wouldn't trust the guy.
That's it. That's what I like about it. It's like, oh, well, he's telling the truth. All right, that's great. Because, I mean, let's face reality. I'm not sure if those really nice guys, they could even be called kind, if you will, were around. They were really deceptive in their marketing. And so it was it's a breath of fresh air to see someone that owns the light, that's trying to be an authority in the space, that owns a lighting company that is unbiased. I mean, it's almost unheard of in reality because everybody's going to put a spin on it. I mean,
sometimes you can't even help it. I mean, even when I was making videos about LEDs, I didn't really have I made no money off of any of that shit. I helped co-design that far red little puck with Rapid LED. I did make some money off of that, but Mike at Rapid made the lion's share, and then those Cutter Electronics kits with the pin heat sinks, I didn't make money off of that. I was just so excited to I felt like an evangelist. I was so excited to spread the good word of LED, like knocking on people's doors. Have you heard the good word about LED? Yes. I was just so excited that people were starting to come over to my team and see my perspective, on how efficient and how much better this technology was, that I wasn't so worried about making money off of it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and ultimately I think, that, like it or not, people can, dance around the subject, but you and myself and Amit and Green Jeans and, who else would we say on the forums? It was pretty big. Supras at one time. And there was just some of these guys that, we changed the face of horticulture. I mean, Fluence did too. Fluence did a good job back then. It was called, Lumentex, and then BML, and then Fluence.
The Lumentex was too narrow. It was like 2 feet wide.
Yeah.
And then BML Spider 600 brought it out to a proper 42 by 42. So that bar light concept.
So they made the biggest impact in the industry.
I think that's fair. And to hear you say that, I would agree. Yeah, number one. But number two, I mean, quantum board's a pretty close second in my estimation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because there was a lot of chatter or a lot of talk about quantum board style lights.
And the name. I remember being so jealous of the name. I'm like, cool. What a perfect name. Perfect, because QB was easy.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Amit come up with that one.
And then HLG, really, because we were in this small little bubble where everybody knew that the Meanwell HLG driver was the preeminent driver.
Yeah. So there was
So for
someone
you to call it
actually,
HLG, I was like, oh.
Yeah, so there was somebody. So they're gone, and it was on the forums. They were real super troll that had done a lot of things.
Right.
That it's controversial today.
Okay.
And they were like, oh well, you come up with HLG because you were just trying to copy my name, which had some of the letters in different areas. And I'm like, no, HLG was an accident. Yeah. So I looked at it because remember, originally I was going to group a bunch of people together to create this company. And so I told Alvin, I said, I think we need to call it the Horticulture Lighting Group.
And group just sounds like you have a group.
Yes, that was it. And that was the idea. It was supposed to be a group.
Be a group,
and it didn't pan out, but that's what it was going to be. So it was like Horticulture Lighting Group. Well, then you shorten it up and it's HLG.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, oh no, I have I use HLG's drivers, the HLG whatever, and I'm like, no, those are Meanwells. I'm sorry. Well, they make them for you. That's why they're called HLG.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So many people's like, no, I really hate that those two things lined out. But yeah,
you don't have to correct them. I mean, but it the name helped kind of spread.
It did. But the HLG, the letters just happenstance from the name Horticulture Lighting Group, which I thought sounded professional.
It does.
And
it sounds professional. And then you're going to rent an apartment from some real estate group, and you go in there and it's one dude. It's like, where's the group? A lot of people use it, but it's a group now. I mean, there's a hell of a lot of people that work around here. That's funny, man. So like in the interest of talking about quantum boards, so the quantum board that was in Scorpion Diablo last year, 650R and 350R was a 648 diode board total, including the reds.
Well, no, that's not including the reds. So
666.
666, and I couldn't stomach, because 666 is kind of one of those controversial numbers in certain religions and things. And,
sure.
And so we kind of poked at it and called it Diablo, right? It's like Diablo.
Yeah, that's like a little.
It was so when we first designed it and sent it to Samsung for review, and we said we want from this many reds and this and that. I never even counted the diode total because I was just looking at strings.
The voltage is right.
Yeah,
You're good, right?
And then they come back with a QB548 prototype drawing, and I was like, oh shit, we can't call it that, So then it's QB648.
Yeah.
So we didn't count the reds. So there's 648 whites and 18 reds. So the reds are run at like 6 times the current of the whites, I think.
Okay.
So it's pretty, pretty. The whites are really underdriven. So on a Scorpion Diablo, the whites end up being in the 47 milliamp range.
Okay.
And the reds are 6 times that, so less than 300.
Less than 300. And all the spec sheets, minimum is like 350 milliamps.
Yeah, 350 is your and 65. So is your test current. So you're below test current. You're really, really good. So max current on the reds are 1,500 milliamps.
Okay.
And the max current on the whites are 200. So you're really, really, really being, it's putting your Honda Civic in cruise control, 65 miles an hour on the interstate in 6th gear, and you never touch it.
Yeah.
It's easy going with full synthetic oil as you can get on this thing.
And the reds have come a long way. Remember the old reds, the maximum current was 700 milliamps, right?
Yeah.
So you had to run them at 350. Now we're running them at 350.
So, Samsung's got some that do 3 amps.
3 amps. Wow. Dang.
Yeah. So it's like 6 watt reds.
It's like military spec.
I mean, that's like, look at it and it's like, I'm seeing a red spot. It would be bad. It would be bad.
All right. So getting back to the Diablo board, and like when I go buy hot sauce, if it says 666 or Diablo on it, it doesn't affect me.
No.
But you don't want to build devil worship into the name of a product for those people that it does offend. So 666 diodes, 648 of them are whites. And then the remaining, what's the math on that? 16? 18?
18 reds.
18 reds. Okay. And so now what do we have? We have a board. Do we still sell that board online?
Yes. So that's so that one is still available.
Yeah.
So that's Scorpion Diablo 2.0. That's in the 350R. That's in the 750R.
Yeah. You wouldn't get rid of a workhorse like that. That's proven across hundreds of thousands of lights.
It's the big thing is in certain circumstances, I will say that the 648 is superior in certain areas, and the new 548 is superior in certain areas, and it depends on that area.
Okay, give me a for instance.
A good for instance would be if you're a mediocre grower but not a master grower, that extra green kind of gives you this cushion of plant health when they're vegging and during the stretch.
I would agree with that.
That allows you to, even if you miss the marks in your nutrition or your environment during the flowering phases, the plant has this reserve to feed from. So you'll end up with a better end product if you're not really great.
Right. So wider margin of error.
Yes, exactly.
And that's so hard to like have a conversation like this and me to say, okay, this white paper and this white paper and this study and this data, I can't do it. All I can tell you is a more balanced diet of photons, and when you mess with the ratio of red, green, and blue, makes the plant eat more photons. Like it can just handle more when the diet is balanced. And the analogy I always make is like, you have your appetizer, you have your vegetables, your steak, you're full. But then dessert comes. And there's always a little room for a little ice cream or a little piece of brownie. If you're full at Roost Chris or whatever, and the dessert comes. So you get that extra.
Wow, you get paid good.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
no, actually, what it is we buy a lot of stuff, and every once in a while we get schmoozed. Not lately, but times are tough.
Yeah. So example one, if you were a mid-level grower, like I'm a mid-level driver, right? But I'd rather have more horsepower than I need. So when I get better, I'll have it. So you buy Scorpion Diablo, you're a mid-level grower, you can make some more mistakes nutritionally, stuff like that. And the light's not going to bleach the trichome or the calyx and the tips and stuff.
Like that. Yeah, that and like I said again, it's like you said, it's more of a balanced diet.
Yeah.
And it just seems like they can take up nutrients a little easier and build up that nitrogen toxicity slight that I like to see before I go into flower, and there's a lot of nutrient lines that actually are front loading the far out of things now. So if you pay attention to that, that's kind of somewhere we're going.
Yeah,
apparently.
I've seen that. I mean, I tried Front Row Ag Newts, and I was pretty happy with them. It's good company, good people, good support.
Good guys.
Answer my phone calls, all that stuff. Their method is a block charging method, so you're going super high EC right off the gate, and then you're tapering off. I use Cutting Edge exclusively. This is not sponsored. We buy it. We get a good deal on it through Innovative Garden Supply, our local supply here in Knoxville. That's more of an approach that I've been comfortable with my whole grow career. Kind of stepping it up as you go. Because we're doing rock wool, 6-inch rock wool we got 2 flood and drain rooms and 2 top drip rooms. And I like it that way because newer employees, I put them in the flood and drain rooms.
Right.
Not, you don't have to micromanage.
Yeah.
My more veteran employees and growers, I'll put them in the top drip and they can get an extra 15% performance out of that garden. And in that instance, that's where we have the Diablo X's with the 548 boards, which we're about to talk about. And but regarding the nutrients and the cutting edge and stuff like that, I don't know where I was going with that. Block charging versus not. I don't like block charging is what I'm saying.
Okay.
For that reason, because when I block charge and I go into flood and drain, then I'm flushing.
But the thing I noticed is when I didn't have supplemental CO2 and things like that, and where I wasn't sure I was going to hit the mark on environment and nutrients all the time. Maybe I don't have the time to be there enough or whatever it is. Yeah. If I did have a slight nitrogen toxicity and a nutrient, just really lush veg and going into the stretch, it seemed like as the flowers developed, even if I had deficiencies or if I was, pests even or anything, it seemed like the plant was able to still produce a pretty good sized fruit at the end of the day, even with problems, more so than one that was just a little lighter green, that you were walking the edge the whole time, and then you miss your mark one time and it just went to shit real quick.
I see your point. I see your point. So the strategy of ridding the plant of nitrogen and, like around day 8, 9, 10, 14 of flower so that you can have more phosphorus available so you can get that pre-flower started faster. It's more of a advanced strategy, right? Mm-hmm. You get those leaves, you get the nitrogen built up in them. You can screw up, you could be a little lazy. And leaves are simultaneously a solar panel and a battery. So you got that battery in there. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we do that sometimes.
If you pay attention to Canna, that was Canna's big secret.
Yeah.
Pay attention. You watch Canna and you go all the way through the stretch with the nitrogen. You don't just switch it off during that stretch. And also look how lush the plants are. And then you look at their bloom booster, it's not very powerful.
Yeah, and you only use it 1 week.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, because they've got it so charged, the plant itself, that when they finally go into fire, it's going to cross that finish line. And that's why everybody's like, well, I'm so successful with Canna. Well, part of it is their strategy. Part of it is the nutrients are really good, and the program has been dialed in. And then if you use the Canna cocoa line, for instance, and their cocoa, they have everything matched. So you're paying a premium. Maybe the product isn't necessarily better, but it's matched better. There's no more cost for them to do it.
Yeah.
But what you're paying for is their expertise and their R&D to get you to where you literally can just pour this shit in and be pretty damn successful.
Yeah, you really can. And you don't even really need to own a pH meter.
That's exactly right.
Or a TDS.
That's exactly right. I know people that did it without pH and ppm meters and crushed it. Yeah. And I was like, you got to use a pH meter. No, man, you don't have to. And I'm like, all right, bro. And then they would have decent looking crops. I'm like, shit, crazy. So that's what you're paying for.
Yeah. Yeah, with cutting edge solutions, their strategy's pretty similar. They do have it's a 3-part plus additives, right? So grow, microbloom, as you know. They only have you running the grow in week 1 of flower. And I've seen a difference where I've extended that grow out to day 14. I extended out to day 21 one time. I had a little employee staffing issue where it wasn't my fault. But there's a lot of leaf. A lot of that green leaf, a lot of that battery bank you're talking about. But they have their recipe has you cutting it out like day 8 and you go into the fire. And when we're on our game and we don't have any pythium or root rot, and everything's perfect, it's great, right? We just have small, compact plants, tight internodes, just chunk of flower. We run that nitrogen through to day 14. The plants are just fundamentally bigger, sometimes twice as big. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, this last run between Scorpion Diablo X and the classic Scorpion Diablo, the plants looked fundamentally similar under the same recipe, but I could definitely tell that extra wattage and just the extra photons definitely made for a tighter internode. Right?
Yeah.
So what's the thinking behind and that's with the 548 boards, right?
Yes,
so what's the thinking there? Because 548 sounds like it's 100-less diodes.
Well, it kind of is, but there's a lot. So your reds. So think about your red as a high power, right? So like we were talking about earlier,
and how many whites is a red worth? You said 6 times the current, right?
Yeah. So you're at 6 times the current, and you're still underdriving, but you really can run the reds at so they're running 10 times the current here, and you're still well below. So the Osrams are test current 700. It's not 350. So you're still below test current on that board. And so there's 28 reds. So
28.
There's 28 reds.
And so that's why it's an even 100.
And
because
there's 520
if a
whites.
red is worth 10 whites on that board and you've got 10 extra reds, but there's 100 less total diodes, it's the same.
Everything runs exactly the same as the 6. Actually, the whites are there's 40 strings instead of 36. So the whites are slightly less driven than the reds are, or than the whites are on the 648. But it's so close. I mean, you're talking about 6-7 milliamps. It's just so in essence, you've shifted. Basically, what I did was we took 33% of the green. And took it away and moved it into red. That's basically the gist of it.
There's no green diodes on the board, but the white diodes have the green, so you took 33% of that way.
Yeah, so
put it into the red category.
So you have 33% more red and 33% less green on the 548 versus 648. I'd have to look at the red blue green ratios. I can't remember now off the top of my head, but that basically is the sum of it right there. So they both have the same exact amount of blue photons. And like I said, 33% less, 33% more. That's the difference. So
that's
what
an important point, right? Because people, they may love the standard or what I would call the traditional Scorpion Diablo, and the perception might be that it's less blue because it looks less blue.
Yeah, there's absolutely no. So again,
so if you hate green light, if you don't believe what we're talking about.
So even then, even with so remember with the 648, the sun spectrum has more green than it has in any other color in the visible light spectrum. When we're talking about PAR, well. The 648 was designed that way. So it had more green than it had blue or red. So the majority of the light was in green. The biggest part when you look at red, blue, green.
Sure.
Well, now red is slightly higher than green. And so this is more of an artificial spectrum versus the 648. The 648 is following the sun as efficiently as I can.
Right.
The 548 is you've got some indoor adapted plants, especially to HPS, where there's a higher amount of red to green than naturally in the sunlight.
Sure.
You can push the plant's metabolism a little faster. So it's like catching another gear when you run this one, but it's less forgiving. It's not going to store those nutrients quite the same. And I almost think of it as I would prefer you to be a professional to buy one. If you're in a tent, you don't have supplemental CO2 and things, stick with Diablo 2.0.
Yeah.
If you're in a commercial space and you're used to running CO2 and pushing the plants, doing your dry backs right, I mean, really, you're down to where you're pulling 3 pounds of light, which
right.
is
where your limitation is the light.
Is the photons. The plants can take more. Diablo X. That's the difference. I think
that's good advice. I mean, I was able to get through. I was running the lights. I can't run my lights at 100% because of circuit breaker issues. I was running them at 95%, and I didn't see any deficiencies. I personally didn't have to do anything with the CalMag, but I feel like Cutting Edge Solutions CalMag's the best on the market.
Yeah,
if you get the opportunity ever to listen to any kind of seminar with Uncle John, the owner of the company or whatever, he talks about all the details about molybdenum, manganese, magnesium, all these other cations that work with, we just say CalMag, but there's a whole host of other, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, this isn't a Cutting Edge commercial. I'm just saying, Diablo X though, that spectrum's beautiful.
It is. I mean, it's a great,
and it's so pleasant. Spectrum. You wouldn't think that it looking a little slightly pink would be pleasant, but it's so soft and pleasant to work under. I love it. And when you're side by side in a room, you can definitely tell the difference. You can definitely see where the green is in the 2.0, the standard or whatever. So so you can still buy both lights. The X is more for pros, I would say, and I think that's fair. I think that's responsible to give that advice. I mean, maybe we sell less of those to people, but the people that we do sell them to are really freaking happy.
I mean, if you feel like, at some point, say you buy 6 of them and you're in a room and you're blowing it up and you're just exhausting and do some different things, but you feel like one day you're going to seal the room and you're going to get better, you can start out with X.
Sure.
You're just going to you don't want to run it 100% maybe.
No, I mean, you would even run it, you'd run it at 50%.
Right. That's
honestly.
what I'm saying. Yeah. So
whereas you might run.
Take baby steps.
Whereas, a 648 board, last year, Scorpion Diablo, you'd run it at 70% while you're getting your feet wet.
Yeah.
Now you're running at 50%.
Yeah.
So
and when I say that, don't go out and say to yourself, be honest with yourself, which is a hard thing to do in life.
Yeah.
Trust me. I'm learning these lessons every day. It's hard to be honest with yourself sometimes, but be real honest with yourself on how good a grower you think you really are. And when I say that, I'm saying when you see this guy killing it, let's say the Jungle Boys, for instance, you see that stuff and you say, oh my God, they're crushing it. Be honest with yourself. That's a pro grower. If your stuff don't look that good, then you're not a pro grower. Don't feel bad when you go get the Diablo 2.0, the original, and say, I'm just not capable. Look, there's a lot of things that it's better that you're honest with yourself and your skill level, because you're going to end up with a better yield and a better quality plant and product than to let your ego kick in and be like, oh, I could do anything that this guy that's been in college for 8 years and has got a master's or a doctorate can do. No, I can't. I'm not that good a grower. Honestly, if I'm growing at home right now, I'm going Diablo 2.0. I'm a good grower.
Yeah,
but I am not that damn good
in a 5x5 tent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm doing Diablo 2.0 because I'm not. I know that at the end of the day that I'm going to end up flying out somewhere, and it's going to be a few days that it's like, hey, wifey, water the plants, and then, oh, what's this PHE thingy? No, just please God, don't let it be completely dead when I get back.
It's remarkable how much a plant babysitter can frick up your plants in a short amount of time.
And that's what I'm saying. So it's like, let's not, because that's, I've done that before, travel, and dim that thing to survival mode. And that way, as it gets watered completely wrong, that you can come back and say that son of a bitch when you get back. I mean, it's terrible to say, but it's true. Yeah,
no, dude, it's back to the engine analogy. You keep the RPMs low when the check engine's lights on. You rev those RPM, that's when things blow up. But like you mentioned ego, I think ego's a component for some growers. I think probably a bigger component is, hey, I paid for this much light. max it to 11. And yeah, you did. I mean, you paid for the light and you got
and
more
got
light.
chopsticks.
Yeah, I mean, you got more light than you can handle, which is good. It was just like my horsepower analogy. I want more than I can handle.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I want to grow into it.
Yeah, I don't want to underestimate myself. I want to grow into it, but I think that's part of it that people maybe they want what they paid for. They want to just juice it up. That's part of it. But I think the lights get an unfair percentage of the blame when something goes wrong in the grow.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, I spent $1,000. Why isn't my grow perfect? You know, and that's coming from me doing thousands of comments on YouTube, on the forums, doing customer service at Chilled. Obviously, we have some. I don't do customer service here, but I hear about things, and people are so fast to blame the light. And it's like, okay, I bought a light. I was doing good. I bought a light. Now I'm doing bad. It's like, okay, well, you changed the engine. What else did you change? You know, and I don't think that's fair to lighting companies or customer service representatives that work in them. I think that if you're going to buy a new light, you know, going to your point, you just dim it down because you don't know what else you need to change.
Yes.
Nutrient wise.
Yeah, I'd tell you the hardest one was we'd have people that were running 600 HPS back in the day, or a 400, and they buy a 550.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a 1,000-watt replacement. Well, I was just thinking I'm using 600 watt. I'm just going to switch out 600 watt.
Yeah.
Oh no, there's a whole lot more light there now. Oh man, it's about 600 watts. My plants never looked like this before. And I'm like, did you increase your feed? Did you increase CO2? Did you do anything else? No, man, that's what I used when I used 600 watts before. It's not the same, bro.
Right.
It's something called
because you're going from a single-ended 600, which is actually
11,
more efficient than the thousands, right?
So it's 1100 micromoles at the bulb when it's brand new, minus about whatever. I think the numbers come out to about like 15% through glass and everything.
Okay.
So you're at 800 micromoles, just to say it to the canopy out of this thing, and then you go to even an old 550. You were at like 1,500 micromoles. I think it was like 1,500 micromoles. And it was 1,400 and something, I believe, because it was 2.8. So yeah, about 1,400 micromoles. You go from 900 to 1,400. That's a 50% increase in light.
Yeah.
What did you do to support all this new? Man, you put this turbocharged engine in my car, and then the transmission went out. Well, did you upgrade anything in the transmission? What about the drive shaft? What about the rear end? What about all these things? You can't twist on that thing 50% harder without something snapping that was only designed for a lot less twist. Same thing. You've got this nutrient program that you've dialed in for 800 micromoles, and now you're at 1,400 micromoles.
Yeah.
You better be feeding a lot more.
I agree.
Because they're going to run faster.
And I think that, there are so many people entering the market every day that I think when you've been in the market for a while and in this industry, it's really easy to think that everybody is using LED and maybe is upgrading from one company to another. But there's still a lot of people that are experiencing LED for the very first time.
Yes.
You read about it all the time, right? So you're going to have these customer service issues and these grow related issues relating to a light that really, I mean, if you bought your first LED 5 years ago, you might have a little learning curve, but lights are just so powerful now. Even the eBay lights and stuff like that are
decent.
They're
not
pretty
bad.
decent.
They're
you're not going to fall on your face.
No.
Like you would have with like the old school Burple, you just fall on your face, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's important to note. I mean, obviously we want to sell HLG lights. We think they're the best lights in the world. I mean, they're made in America. The components are sourced from the best possible manufacturers, from drivers. We got people here down the street in America building the lights. And we think that if you're going to make an investment in a lighting product, you want more than you can handle because that's why they're dimmable, right? And then, you never know when your situation is going to change. There's been times where I've gone from a tent to where then I had a whole bedroom. Then I had a basement, and I was super glad.
And then there's also the dimmability part. You even think about sometimes you have something great, and then you get knocked down to something not so great, so you got to dim down. And that's the beauty of LED, of course, is you don't get that spectrum change and efficiency change. You dim an HPS, and it's not great. Right. It's not great. So, and that's the other thing that I have noticed with customer service in the last year or two is if you got a new grower coming into it, and they've never grown with the HPS, they're more successful by far than the guy that ran HPS for 5 years and then come into an LED. He has twice the struggle because you got to break those habits, and they fight you. They're like, no, I want to smoke one more cigarette. You know what I mean?
I would agree with that in most cases. It's just like hiring an employee that has no experience versus someone that has experience, and maybe you want them to do it your way, but they're going to do it the way they did at their old company, right? or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you on that. I would disagree with you in the fact that, man, when I built my first LED, which was like my first video on YouTube, we had 4 1,000 watt HPSs in triple XL 8-inch. We were sucking air from the soffits in the winter, so our lights are filling up with water, condensation or whatever. So when I switched over, it was a suboptimal environment, and we were using a 14,000 BTU dual hose portable for 4,000 watts, so it just wasn't getting the job done. So when I switched to LEDs, it was like a savior.
Right.
It was like somebody put some device on my brain and just sped me up into becoming a better grower. I could see everything better. So I think in some instances, LED just makes you a better grower.
Well, it can if you're having that hard time dialing in. But if you're used to, you've been a guy growing 100 1,000s and you've got shit dialed and you're pulling a couple pounds 1,000 and you're doing good.
Yeah.
You breaking your habits because you know where you're at. That's hard. Yeah. It's like, hey man, you got to run this room at 83, 84 degrees now, not 70, not 75, not 76. No way, man. I know what I'm doing. It's different though. Yeah. You got to look at leaf surface temperature and no. You know what I mean? Those things.
No, it feels wrong to run that hot early on. Oh. You have to wait. You have to wait until your performance plateaus, and that can happen faster in a commercial environment where you have like 4 or 5 or 6 rooms, and you get more data points per year. Then like in home grow, you're going to get 4 or 5, maybe 6 data points per year. So like, you go from 80 to 82, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I did a little better this time. For me, it was always really hard to go above 80 because I've been growing for 20 years.
Yeah, God. That's what I'm saying. So you fight that. Yeah. Initial and the guy that's sitting there, it's like, no, we're the manufacturer of this product. We've got hundreds and hundreds of people using this product, and this is the definitive answer. Yeah, and they'll still fight you. Yeah, and I would say, if you want faster transpiration, you want your VPD to be in that 1.0. I forget the units. No one uses units on VPD. Kilopascal, I forget what it is. Whatever. If you want it to be 1.0 or whatever, you run the 83, so you're not running so humid. But if you have any kind of Pythium or root rot issues or whatever, like we've had, a whole room with Pythium that we couldn't get rid of, we're running a little cooler. That slows down the fungal growth, the pathogenic growth and stuff. So there are caveats to this. There are exceptions to the rule. But yeah, generally speaking, to get that leaf surface temperature in the absence of IR, because an HPS has 15.3, a double-ended Gavita bulb new has 15.3% of its total energy in the IR range. So 150 watts of IR. You could warm a lot of hot dogs in the gas station with 150 watts. Is that all it is 15%?
Yeah, 15.3. Yeah, of IR. I don't know if the cutoff is before or after far red. I think it might just be in the 800 nanometer and beyond range. Okay. Right, and that was a study I saw. I think that was on one of the bug
It seems like it has to. Yeah. It seems like to me that it would be higher because you are getting 1,000 watts of energy out of that bulb.
Right.
Well, so you take 1,000 watts and you're getting
like
in the par. Right. Yeah. So when you take par, you're looking at from 400 to 700. Right. You're getting about 300 and change watts of par watts. So there's about 700 watts going somewhere. Yeah. And I was thinking, because if you look at the full spectrum to 1,000 nanometers, that spike of IR is much taller than all the visible light. I'm talking 4x.
Yeah.
So I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if it's just 15%.
I stand behind my numbers.
Okay, cool. I'd like to know where the rest of it is, though. I mean, maybe they're just saying, because like I said, again, you're getting 300 and something par watts.
Right.
And then we know that. So you're getting 300 and something par watts. So where's the other energy?
I see your point. Okay, so 1,150 watts times the efficiency of the luminaire, which is how you're getting 350 par watts. The rest is heat watts that do not produce light. Of that 350, what is the proportion from? You got to remember, from the UV range, because they do put out a moderate amount of UV, obviously, right? Yeah. All the way to 1,000 nanometer plus, deep into the IR range. I'm going to stand behind my numbers, but I'm also going to nervously go home and fact check myself.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, like I said, when you think about the efficiency. Okay, so 1,000 watts at 4.8 micromoles. So it should be 4,800 micromoles. So you're getting supposedly about 2,100.
What's the relevance of 4.8 micromoles?
Okay, so so 4,000 Kelvin.
Okay.
Is 4.84 micromoles per watt.
Max theoretical.
That's 100% efficient.
Okay, 100%.
So
gotcha.
So if you're at 1,000 watts coming out of the bulb, let's just say, then you should be at 4,840 micromoles if it was a 4K spectrum. Okay. So 3K would be actually a little more because the warmer, the more red, that's actually more photons. So it would be like 4.94. So it could be 4,940 micromoles. We know we're getting 2,100 from the bulb and about 1,800 out of the reflector and all. So the reflecting of that visible light's also turning into heat, which is when that photon bounces, it loses some energy. Now it's infrared.
Right.
So altogether, you're at 1,800 out of a possible 4,900. So that dictates to me it's about 30-something% efficient, and about 60-something% efficient is waste, because again, there is 1,000 watts coming out of that bulb, and it's very apparent when you're standing underneath it.
It is. Yeah, you can feel it on that, like the skin above your eyebrows.
Yeah,
even when you're like 5-6 feet away. The point I was attempting to make was that when you're dealing with a double-ended HPS with presumably 15.3 or 15.6% of the visible light, out of there coming out IR, that's a lot of radiant heat towards the leaf, right? So, like you're going to run at 78 in
absolutely.
an HPS room to keep the leaf cool. And the leaf is going to experience somewhere in the neighborhood of 82 to 83 degrees, right? Leaf surface temperature.
Yeah.
So, okay, bringing all those numbers, we should... I don't want to make our producer's job hard, but when he did that a few minutes ago, that meme where it's all the yes, floating math. Please superimpose floating math on that.
Yeah.
Anywho, okay, so when we come up with these light names and stuff, obviously there's a whole team of people, marketing, you, Amit, whoever, and we come up with these names. We're like, okay, cool, right? But I think it takes like a year for people to like learn the name second nature. So let's just go through the names again. We had HLG, everything's HLG. HLG 350R was a flat plate with 2 boards on it. Diablo board means 666 diodes.
Yeah.
And it had like a 320 driver on it, pulls like 350 watts, universal voltage. Now we make that in a bent plate, right?
That's the only difference.
That's the only difference.
So what we've seen in the bent plate is with that particular one, because there's not as much, it's not capped on 4 sides.
Right. We just made the metal longer and then put it in a metal break,
yes,
broke it at a precise angle.
And then
same driver, same boards.
It's it's not quite as big of a jump in performance as the
it's more like 11%.
Yeah, it's like 10-11% instead of about the 15% range.
And what's it called again?
It's still 350R.
350R. So they all come bent now.
Yes,
100%.
Everything.
Okay.
So 350R, the 250 Veg Pro, and
that's a great light.
Yes, and now you have the 320, which has it has far red diodes in it.
Yeah.
So and that one's a really great hobbyist light for a 2x4.
Which one?
The 320. So this is the new model we just launched this week. It's 320 watt. It's officially, they call it 320. So it's like right at 310 or 20 watts.
Okay.
And it's the new far red boards.
Okay.
And it's really inexpensive. It's kind of efficient, like 2.6, which let's face reality. When I say kind of efficient, it's a real world 2.6. So when you go out to a lot of these companies and they're claiming numbers, we've been through this 1,000 times. They're not real. A real 2.6 light will surprise you. And at the price point that we're bringing this to you at, I mean, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. This real world,
So the funny thing about far red, I've been hawking far red for my whole career. As I referenced in the beginning of the show, when I was just on the forums trying to make a name for myself or whatever, I hooked up with Mike at Rapid LED, and we put 4 far reds on that little puck with a Meanwell LDD driver, so that you just got one of those electronic wall dongles. You plugged in 12 volts and it was good to go. People loved it as a flower initiator, but at $20, or maybe they're $30 now with inflation, you got to add a lot of those to achieve the Emerson effect. So I never marketed it as Emerson, right? And I never did substantial research with Emerson effect until like years later, right? Until I was convinced. But there's this kind of myth out there, and the myth is rooted in the way plants grow in nature. You have 2 of the same species, or or it doesn't even have to be the same species of plant in nature, when a plant grows up over another, the filtering effect of that leaf creates more far red onto the little pipsqueak plant. And he says, oh, what the hell, dude? This guy's all up on my stuff, giving me all this far red.
Shade avoidance.
And so he goes, whoop, shade avoidance, right? So it's this trigger. I don't see that indoors under bright lights.
No, that's the thing.
And here's my case study, right? So we did you kind of made this decision. So a lot of people know Envy Closet Med Grower from the internet and winning cups and stuff. So you give me 80 lights, normal Scorpion Dalbus for mine, and then you made a special edition for him where it had the far red.
Yep.
And he and I got along great. We're no longer working together. He's doing his own thing, but it wasn't a pissing match or anything.
No.
But obviously, I'm a competitive guy. I want to see what his yield of the same strain, grapefruit, for example, versus me. And he's putting out yields 18%, 20% more. Same environment, same botanic air tray, same dehumidifiers, same nutrients, because we're sharing newts at the same 55-gallon drum. So down to the same batch, the same clones, which he got from me, from my mother's. And he's mopping the floor with me yield-wise. Yet I'm still having arguments online about far red making stretchier plants. And the plants are the exact same size.
Yes.
No change.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Eventually, we'll add far red to 548 is designed to where it can have far red added to it and that's its original design. But until DLC starts recognizing that, it makes it tough for us to put it in because it kneecaps our fixture when it comes to commercial. Right, I mean, it absolutely destroys any rebating.
Because the addition of that diode is a net efficiency loss,
big time.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But what you gain though is the Emerson effect, which is less easy to calculate. Actually, it's really hard to calculate, right?
So there is an effort. Bruce Bugbee is leading it up, and kudos to him for that effort.
Sure.
To get DLC to adopt something that they're calling EPAR, if I'm not mistaken, right? So that's the new from 400 to 750 nanometer instead of calling it PAR, which is fine and it's great, and we know that it works. So we even in your place we custom built some far red UV bars.
Oh and that was great, right? But like Nathan or Envy Closet Med has 130 integrated lights. I got a few bars over here, and with a 5% energy increase, right? I got a 600 watt light. I'm adding a 30 watt far red to it. It says 5% more light. Naturally, you're probably going to expect a 5% increase just because you put more light energy.
And I think
but I was seeing more like 8 to 10%.
Well, so I think we should also measure the wattage on those, because when we said 30 watts, that was a UV bar, but the forward voltage on those UV is much higher.
Oh, it's like 3.2 volts versus 2.2 volts.
Yes, I bet you they're pulling 20 watts, and that would really make a big difference. So we probably actually need to put a meter on those things. That's one thing we didn't do. We just said 30 watt driver, throwed it in there, and said, and I got to think about it. I was like, oh God, they're probably way less. I just thought of that.
I don't know. I don't have any data to back this up. But I think that to achieve the Emerson effect, which without going too much into it, it's like you've got these chemical reactions during photosynthesis. These electrons.
I like 1 to 6.
1 to 6%.
1 to 6. 6 photons of 660 to every photon of 730.
Oh, you were going to go by photons. And that's probably a much, much better way to go. But I mean, most people out in the streets are doing wattage, right? Oh, I got a 600 watt light. How many percent of far red do I need? I think you need a minimum 3% even to notice anything. Yes. But I think probably 6%.
Yep. So
9% would probably be the upper maximum to where you might see some shade avoidance effects.
So here's a big thing with far red that I tell people, and they're like, I don't want that in my light. It'll cause stretch. Take that spectrum of that FR board. That's 700. That's this new 320. And go get any box of a CMH, a regular metal halide, and especially my favorite commercial, I won't say commercial, my favorite advertised grow bulb for veg was the super metal, the blue metal halide by Hortilux. What a beautiful effing spectrum, right? Yeah. Beautiful. Well, Venture made one that I like better that was for paint booths, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Venture makes good bulbs. I used them in aquariums.
Yes, it was only available for 400 watts, but that was the most beautiful spectrum ever. But every one of those bulbs, CMH, HPS, metal, regular metal halide, all of them have substantially more far red in them than even our far red board that might cause a bunch of stretching. So I'll tell you, you want to see a pretty plant veg, not efficiently, but looks good. A 4200K CMH.
Grower's Choice 4200.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I remember.
Beautiful. And that's the point. And guess what?
Yeah.
It had more far red than our far
And
red
it had
flower light.
It did.
And was the plant stretchy and falling over? No.
And not throwing shade at the manufacturers, but they have a limited amount of real estate on the box. So they would give you this little graph of the spectrum that we've all seen from around 400 to 700. But if you go on the website or you go on independent studies like Bugbee studies and stuff where he's testing the whole thing from 200 to 1,000 nanometers, there's a lot going on in that.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of far red.
Other spikes that are not even advertised, like a 940 spike on that bulb.
Yeah.
So we've all grown with stuff that we didn't even know we were growing with.
That's exactly right. And that's the thing. I think LEDs, white light LEDs in particular, and what we got into, really started an honest to God discussion around what effects does the spectrum actually have on the plants, what really works and what doesn't. Because for one time we weren't taking basically a street lamp or something that was built for something completely different and throwing it in a hood and calling it a grow light. We were a la carte saying, okay, I can create this much red, I can create this much far red, I can create this much orange, I can create this much green. Yeah. I can actually pick my spectrum. None of these other things, you can change the gases and pressures a little bit.
Sure, but for the most part, it's a one size fits all.
It's just a technology. You take a street light HPS and you take a Hortilux HPS and you look at the spectrum and it's like, ooh, look, 3% more blue. We had to do hours and hours and thousands and probably millions of dollars of research to get this 3% more blue out of this by changing the gases. Where, oh yeah, blue diode, got you.
True.
Now that
3% more blue could manifest into 9% more yield or more terpenes or whatever.
That's what I'm saying.
Not to say it isn't important, but you're right.
That's what I'm saying.
I remember going to Rapid LED again. Rapid LED
LEDs,
and for $3.25, I could have had a blue.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Absolutely, LED allowed us to literally look at the spectrum and say, I'm going to okay. it instead of it just being, I'm going to kind of tune a little bit, It's literally, we can really change things.
And I think that's where we've landed now because, obviously you're an innovator. I consider myself an innovator, but we're neither of us are Elon Musk. And the innovations are becoming a little few and far between here lately as we reach this theoretical maximum that physics allows in terms of light output. Now, before we were just trying to get enough light. Now everything on the market's got enough light, probably actually a little more light than most people need.
So my next venture eventually will be, I'm going to look into light scheduling changes.
Okay, yeah, and that's a good one. And if you'll hold that thought for a minute, I thought the next logical transition, spectrum's always been in the conversation, right? Optics have kind of been in the conversation, but these diodes are so good and so sealed on their own, and many manufacturers, will use a conformal coating or whatever, that optics really, they're just a net loss.
Well, so here's the
when
problem
you can take a piece of metal and bend it and get that light down there for free.
Well, it's not just the free part. Here's
what
the
I mean is free, near free in terms of transmittance losses. Through a glass.
Yes, so that's the thing. So why pass 100% of your photons through something that blocks a percentage of the light? When you can literally only change the angle of what isn't traveling in the direction you want it to travel to begin with.
What would you estimate? How many of our diodes interact with our reflector? Right, because we got a light that's
about between 15 and 20. It's about 17% of the light. You're probably correcting 17, 18%.
17% gets corrected, and of that 17%,
you lose about 1 or 2%, maybe 3.
So negligible.
Yes, very negligible. That's what I'm saying. So when you sphere test the side by side, it was 2.94 versus 2.91 micromoles per joule in a sphere. So you're losing 0.03 micromoles, but then you're gaining the equivalent of 15%, which would be 0.4 plus micromoles per joule for a 0.03 loss at the sphere level. So that's the difference.
I mean, if your goal is to fill up a bucket with a water hose, right?
Yeah, you want to make sure it goes down.
Make sure it goes down.
And it's a similar situation with these optics. The problem is okay, so Liddell Florence series is what the QB548 was really, and the 304 was originally designed around. That was the most
and that was
efficient,
more of an architectural.
Yes, and that was the most efficient optic I could find at the time.
That was PMMA plastic.
Yes, so about 93 to 94% efficient over a 301 product. Okay, here's what you get. So you're losing 6% of all your light, 7%, maybe 7, over your entire of all your light output. You're losing 7%. Okay, if you go from that 30-30 to a 35-35, the efficiency goes from 93 to 88 because you're out of the more your light emitting surface goes away from that focal point, the worse the efficiency gets.
So you're talking about just expanding the dye like we talked about.
Yeah, because so you're getting a 3.5 millimeter by 3.5 millimeter light
half a
emission.
Millimeter on either direction allows the photons to.
Yes, because Lumelid's made of 35-35, 88%. So you look at some of the competitor lights out there, and they've got clusters of diodes under a single optic.
I mean, can we say the name?
No, that optic
let's not
is
say the name.
The optic is 60-something% efficient. 60-something. So you're literally, they're saying these optics put all the light down, but you're throwing a third of all the photons into the trash can. Dude, you literally can remove the optics, and not only does the PAR go up directly under the light, but out here it substantially goes up.
I know. I see this light. I don't want to. We don't. We're professional. You're professional.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, why?
We don't want to name the name.
Yeah,
but there's this company out there that makes a light that's like a real high-powered light. And we understand the value of using an optic under a high power LED, a 3-watt light, a 3-watt diode. But we're talking Samsungs or mid power 0.3, and they're grouping them together under this optic that looks about as thick as some Coke bottle glasses. Right. And they're not even aligned under the centroid. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but the focal point.
Yeah. And so I was the biggest proponent of optics until I realized that this is so effing limiting on mid powers.
Yeah.
Now, when you're running high power LEDs and you can get that high power 94% efficient under that centroid, and then it's one optic and you only got a couple hundred diodes for a whole fixture and you're good, whatever. Yes. Mid powers, no. They're never, ever. I mean, they work in a low light scenario, but for a grow light, something that you're trying to produce basically the sun indoors, this much output, you're going to have thousands and thousands of diodes. You're not going to have thousands and thousands of optics. So you're making a big compromise by trying to go with optics if you're using mid power. So you have to go with high power, which is less efficient, and you're going to give up some photons there, or you're going to go with mid power and then have a very ideal optics situation and lose a bunch of photons. So optics went out the window a long time ago for me.
The only argument that kept optics in the conversation was foliar sprayed. And if you're having a short bus full of special needs growers come in and foliar spray your rooms.
Yep.
That's the most PC language I could use. Get some optics.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, so
if you're gonna put it, but let me finish this a second. So if you're gonna foliar spray with a garden hose, get some optics. I use what I feel is probably the best sprayer for the dollar. It's the Petra Tools. It's a plug-in atomized sprayer, backpack sprayer. We spray 4 times a week. We alternate 2 IPMs and 2 foliars typically, and we got 80 lights. All our rooms are the same, 20 rooms. So my guys are in there with this backpack sprayer, and they're fogging the stuff out of that room. I mean, we're talking it's moist in there, dude. Like, it'll be 85% humidity. How many diodes do you think have gone out on my Scorpion Diablos over 80 lights? 0.
Right. Well, so the Samsung diodes actually have an anti-sulfurization coating on them. So a lot of what happens to diodes is the sulfurization. So they have that on there. So I'm not saying that conformal coating ain't a good idea, because I think it is.
I think it is.
So HLG is moving in that direction.
What's the losses on that?
Very minimal. Like no. What I've seen in testing is like less than 0.1%.
The challenge is
good. Yeah. So the thing that everybody has messed up on is what type of conformal coating they're using. So everyone thinks that this silicone is what you're seeing used like across the board.
Yeah.
And
you dig your fingernail and you feel it,
You
right?
think that's it, right? Well, here's the problem. That shit will grow mold. I've got proof of it.
I've seen it yellow.
And it does yellow. So here's the worst part, though. The reason it's and it blows my mind how this shit works. I swear it does. But the prevailing reason that is the conformal coating of choice right now in LED grow lights is because the other types of conformal coating, believe it or not, the Chinese equivalent to OSHA doesn't like it, and they like silicone, so that's what gets used.
So it's potentially it's an occupational health hazard to use these more optimized.
Because in China, protective equipment may or may not be used as much. The silicone has less likelihood of causing inhalation damage.
Yeah.
Where if you use some of these other conformal coatings, but you do use a respirator and some things like that, it's absolutely fine.
Okay.
It's the fact that they have to account for there's a bunch of dumbasses that won't use personal protection equipment.
Well,
they'll
you might be being unfair. They might not be provided.
Right.
Right.
Right. But for me, I value my life. If I don't care if this is the only job I can get in Shenzhen, I'm like, you're going to get me a mask or I'm not spraying this shit. The end.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't think they put you in the stockade. Maybe, but outside
to be
of that,
fair,
no.
there's 4 or 5 other people lined up that will do it without a mask. And I think that's the environment there. But I mean, fortunately for just like humanity, I mean, not that conditions are better in Mexico. Labor's cheaper in Mexico.
Yes.
Labor in China's gone more expensive. You see Tesla, where's their new factory? Is in
So
China or Mexico? It's in Mexico, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and obviously the American dream now is that everybody gets to have everything. And, you know, like without China making cheap stuff, I wouldn't be able to order my USB charger for $7. I'd have to go to Best Buy and buy it for 30, right? So, you know, the Chinese definitely fill a role there, and the factories are suboptimal or whatever. But that is like for our purposes, we're trying to innovate, we're trying to min-max, you know. So that's the advantage of doing it in America, because we've got the resources where we can give our workers here in Tennessee some respirators, and we can use the stuff that's going to stay clear, higher transmittance, higher everything.
And very great stuff. So that is coming in the future. The greenhouse light already features it.
Okay.
And some of the other lights will get that in the future.
And the greenhouse light, have we done any marketing on that, or it's just
it's on the commercial page. So if anyone is interested in a greenhouse, go to the commercial section. I don't know if we have it on the retail website, because there's not really that many retail customers that are going to, you know, even if you are running a little bitty one of these nice little greenhouses that your mommy has out back or whatever.
This ain't for you.
No, this baby's not for you.
This is meant to be mounted like
really
14
high,
feet above.
Really high and really powerful. You know, it's like 700. The high efficacy model, we're seeing numbers as high as 3.7 micromoles per joule, and it's 720 watts. So
this is a filling in the spectra that is less represented
so we
by
have
the
two
sun.
Models.
Yeah.
So we have two models. We have the full spectrum that's pretty much like our regular indoor spectrum, and then a modified version of that, and then we have the high efficacy, which is just a decent amount of blue, a smidge of green, and a lot of red. So that one is the photon junk food for you know. I kind of tend to think that if I'm a okay greenhouse grower and I'm growing for volume a lot, probably going with the high efficacy. If I've actually got a decent greenhouse set up that's actually environmentally controlled and everything's right, I'm probably going to go full spectrum, because I think that green that is going to make sure that the quality is a little higher on the product at the end of the day. So. And the cost on the other is, you know, it depends on how much supplemental lighting. I mean, it's going to be hard to justify, because there's nearly almost $400 my cost in reds on that bat. Bad boy. Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me, I forget the name, but that one dude that made that water cooled Agnetics or something like that, and it was like $4,000. It was like $4,000 light, because he's got $1,000 his cost where the red's in.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
but it's I mean, if you're a Arabian prince and you got a Lamborghini, you just leave on the side of the road when it runs out of gas. You know, hey, I'm going for look at 3.7 micromoles.
That light was either made for Arabian princes or it was just made because they could.
Yeah.
Just so they get that headline of, the highest micromole.
Well, and then there's also, and believe it or not, some of these municipalities are catching on.
Yeah.
And the efficiency of the light is dictating the actual rebate. So when it comes down to it, a lot of these guys get that light for the same price or even cheaper than the full spectrum because of the huge efficacy bump.
I see.
So it ends up they really do win because now their power bills cut even more and it was cheaper. They really win. But it's in certain markets and these guys are catching on, these municipalities. Yeah. And again, I think people like Bruce Bugbee out here and Migro, these guys are talking the talk and you, occasionally somebody pays attention.
Yeah. Yeah, the industry's really stale right now. Mm-hmm. You've got 157,000 different manufacturers making a bar light. And they all look like let's be honest, dude, I don't know if I guess I'm a little frustrated because I'm like, do your eyeballs work fundamentally? Is there something wrong with my eyes? Am I seeing something that you're not seeing? It's a Fluence ripoff. And there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong.
Some of them, if you look at it, I mean, it's a damn ripoff.
Freaking ripoff.
Even the molds for the plastic is like, did you go over to Fluence and say, hey, bro, can I use your molds for
right?
me?
Yeah, take a Dremel tool and scratch out the Fluence part. And not throwing shade or whatever. It was a great innovation, and the folding innovation definitely makes sense. And I'm all about that because that saves volume, it saves shipping, and it saves carbon footprint, right? Because more of them fit on the UPS truck. So it's great design. That's great or whatever. But you've seen one, you've seen them all.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And there's some spectral control ones and stuff. And I think that's great too. If you want to play around with spectral control in your home basement and, spend the next 5 to 7 years developing a spectrum, because that's what it took Poetry of Plants. He's a friend of mine. I would say a personal friend. Yeah. And he was using those science lights, which those guys are great guys, cool light. But yeah, it took him 5 years to develop a spectra for the strains that he was growing. And he showed it to me at MJ BizCon. I was absolutely blown away. Some of the best, I would say it was hands down definitively the best smelling cannabis flower I ever smelled.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's great. And more power to him. That's his bag. That's what gives him his jollies. But not a lot of people in business have 5 years or 3 years or whatever it took them to develop a spectral recipe
that probably
to maximize one strain.
Yeah, exactly, to that strain. No one does. And then again, like I said, they've done studies and 95+% of growers do better with a fixed spectrum than they do something that they adjust. They do worse with an adjustment.
Interesting.
Yeah, 95% do better with a fixed.
If you're going to quote it, we better reference it.
Yeah, it's at least 95. I can't remember. I think it may have been Fluence that done the study.
Yeah, Fluence has done a lot of interesting studies.
I mean, those guys have done some stuff.
With on them is they did the diminishing return study and proposed that somewhere in the 680 ppfd range was your maximal.
That was a pretty early study though, and I think there was probably more than likely we were still hadn't even figured out the nutrient game so much yet.
Yeah.
And drawbacks because I mean Bugbee is now saying that it's like 1800.
I just didn't like the language of the study because the way that it was perceived was that you only need 680 ppfd for optimal growth, but I think that if you really read the article, that's your diminishing returns point. Right? Like you're diminishing returns in terms of you'll get the highest transpirative performance up to that level. And then as you add more PPFD, it's less performance, but net, or I guess I should say gross, you're still ending up with 2.5 pounds of light versus 1 pound of light, right?
Yes.
So I don't care that much.
Well, so I mean, when it comes to grams per watt, Captain Morgan probably from the Roll It Up forums was one of the original guys that run 600 ppfd. That's what he ran. Yeah, and he ran those cobs at really soft, and he was pulling 2 grams.
I copied him on a light,
pulling 2 grams of watt way back in the day, and with way inferior technology compared to today. And the reality is scrooging out that plant, single tier, no bottom, no larva, no nothing. Scrog. Some people call it scrog and
I guess
scroge.
It's like
SCROG. Scrog.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to pick at you. I was like, what's scrooging?
They flatten it out, no undergrowth, just a single layer of buds or whatever. 600 ppfd does relatively well, especially if you spread those cobs out because he was running them low, running 8 per 240 driver, spreading it out over 3x3 and getting that even coverage on just that single layer. You your yields are really good per watt.
They're
but
amazing.
at the same time, it's like, okay, so you're 2 grams a watt, 240 watts, so 480 grams,
You got
maybe a pound. That's decent. But if you go in there with high light intensity now, I will argue that there are people that probably could almost pull 2 pounds out of a 3x3, believe it or not.
Yeah.
No, some really good growers. And,
Yeah. No, 2 pounds out of 3x3 is absolutely achievable.
And that's what I'm saying. So at the end of the day, hobbyist grower again, slower metabolism. You're probably going to do better.
Yeah.
But that's just not the truth anymore. Which, I mean, I think at the time when Fluence was even marketing this shit, there was no legal cannabis states.
Right.
There was none. You had medical in California, so there was no commercial. There was no thought of high. Everybody was growing in a fucking tent. So 680 probably made sense for a tent grower.
Yeah, just
with
the
no
data
supplemental
sets,
CO2. Yeah,
the data
you
sets
just
were
didn't
so
have it.
limited.
Yeah, I mean, they were probably doing some illegal shit themselves back then to even find out.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. We don't know, but kudos to them if they did.
Yeah.
Brass balls, go for it. I'm all for it, man. I mean, at the end of the day, because there's a lot of underground growers that have pushed this industry into the limelight. If there wouldn't have been all these risk takers, we wouldn't be sitting here today.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I got arrested.
Allegedly.
I didn't go to jail.
Allegedly.
No, I really did get arrested. This statute of limitations are up. I got 3 years probation. The worst part of it was when I would go to my probation officer. When you go into Walmart and they got those little skinny mirrors about $10 or whatever. It's about a foot wide by about 3 feet. They had the trifecta right in front of the toilet. Probation officer standing right behind you, and you've got to transmit a sample. That was the worst part of probation for me. I always hated that part. I always dreaded that part.
What the worst part would be is you turn around and you see he's getting a chub. Oh no,
that would be bad. I guess that's slightly better than going to jail.
Yeah, maybe
right?
a little, maybe a little. Because if that happens in jail, there's more consequences from there.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, I think this has been a great informative episode, and
I think so too. No, it's cool just to sit down with you like after work or whatever and just talk about stuff. Yeah, we'll end it here. I mean, you and I, we talk about so much stuff, but rarely do we ever just sit down in a room together and talk about LEDs.
Yeah,
so this is a good
sure,
opportunity to do
absolutely.
that. So.
And maybe there'll be more episodes like this to where we can.
We should definitely get some of these lights up off the ground. We have some new lights coming out too. I mean, see, your brain doesn't turn off.
It don't.
And so I've been pretty impressed with what you've been able to do. You take a light like Scorpion Diablo and then you optimize it by 2-3%. Kudos, dude. Great job. You optimize it by 15%. It's just like mind blow. When is enough enough?
I really liked Migro's response. He's like, I really didn't think the last one would be beaten. It was like, oh my God, he beat it by a lot.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
So I was like, yeah.
Shout out to Shane.
Hey, shout out to the dude and White Russians, because I'm sitting here drinking a White Russian being taken out by a couple of suppliers of ours, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh shit, I got it. Because I kept sitting there thinking, how am I going to do something better with these lights?
Really?
And I'm sitting there drinking a White Russian, and I drink another one, and I'm waiting on them. So I'm early, and I'm drinking. I drink like 3 White Russians, and all of a sudden, my mind slowed down enough. I was like, wait a minute. Oh shit, that'll work.
And you didn't even have to bonk your head on the toilet lid.
No, it was great. So now I called Abed. I'm like, I got it.
That's a super manly drink.
Yeah. So
no, actually, it is kind of. I mean, the dude drank it.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna shout out the dude from the dude and Scotty.
Oh yeah, those guys too. Those guys have been for real. Super fans of ours, and we're super fans of theirs day one. Absolutely. If you guys get a chance to check out their show as well, you should. I mean, those guys are they're awesome, down to earth, real people. And that's what I enjoy in life, is real people that aren't afraid to be themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. J.R. Turkin, too.
Absolutely.
Part of their crew. He's made a career out of that. That's cool. Well, anyways, we hope you enjoyed this episode where we actually talk about LEDs and we talk about HLG products. I think we did a pretty good job of talking about the different names and stuff like that. But head over to HLG.com, check out all the different models that we have, the 2 different boards. I think there's just a drop-down box between if you want to go 2.0 Spectrum or the 548X Spectrum. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I know it's been a couple weeks. Like Steve said, we'll get together more for these one-on-ones. We kind of kept it general today, but feel free to leave some comments, whether it's regarding stuff we've talked about in this episode related to growing or related to HLG lights, any kind of clarification stuff, and we'll do like a little Q&A. Segue next time.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, have a happy 420, guys, or I hope you had a happy 420, and we'll see you on the next episode.